Hey, Robert here. Will and I want to thank each and every one of you who listen and support the show. And if this is your first time catching us, please know that you can listen as always on Spotify and Apple Podcasts under Cinema 100, as well as catch our video show on YouTube under our parent company, Three Dots Media. Just click on that playlist, Cinema 100 Podcast, and there you have it. Finally, catch up on everything we have going on now and in the future on our Instagram and TikTok page under Cinema 100 Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Cinema 100, and keep watching movies. This last film from 1935 takes us far from Hollywood glamour and straight into the quiet corners of everyday survival. An Inn in Tokyo, released in 1935, comes from Yasujiro Ozu, often known for family dramas, but this film shows a harsher, more vulnerable side of his world. Set during the Great Depression in Japan, it follows a father and his two young sons drifting from job to job, inn to inn, clinging to dignity as poverty closes in. There's no melodrama here, no grand speeches, just small gestures, fleeting kindness, and the weight of circumstances pressing down on ordinary people. It's a modest film in scale, but emotionally devastating, capturing how resilience and love persist even when stability disappears. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Cinema 100, and this is An Inn in Tokyo. With our final movie of the year 1935, Will, that means we are officially done with year number 9. We're going to be on to our 10th year and officially have a decade under our belt after 1936. It's been quite the ride so far. And to end year number 9, we had a little movie called An Inn in Tokyo, which was a Japanese international film for us. It will end the year for us in 1935, and it was, I'm going to use the word interesting. It was a silent film, so it's kind of going backwards just a tad in our journey, but in Tokyo, it was nice to, some of the research I did, it was nice to read that in Japan, they're kind of at the same pace as Hollywood. This wasn't like they're years behind, and that's why we got a silent film. I'll give you a fun anecdote in a little bit about the director, Ozu. This was just a creative choice that he made, kind of like Charlie Chaplin in Hollywood and things of that nature. So silent films aren't necessarily the most popular thing at this time in Japan, but he felt it was a better way to tell this story. So with that being said, Will, tell me about your viewing experience for this 80-minute film called An Inn in Tokyo.
Yeah, I guess I would say it was a little. I kind of had split feelings on it.
Me
Uh,
too.
kind of, kind of based around the first half and the second half. Right. I thought the first half was actually very good. I was really impressed with the camera, the choices that Ozu had with the camera placement, and the foregrounding of the boys and the father against the industrial backdrop. I just thought it was really well shot in that first half, and you kind of get that. My word here for the fill in the blank was desolate. It kind of felt like there was a lot. It just felt barren, right, in the foreground, but in the background, there's all these machinations at play with the factories, and
Yeah.
you kind of get to the town a little bit. It really felt. It felt like it had a very good pace, and I felt like I understood the first half much better than I did the second half. Yeah.
Ditto. I can't say anything better than you just said there. The first half, easy to follow. My word, fill in the blank word, is simple. I thought the story was simple. I thought the shots were kind of simple. I thought everything about this movie was simple. And I'm sure there's some greater, things at play here, and we'll talk about them as we go. But, I was kind of torn. I'm like, am I supposed to be giving this film more credit than I am? Am I missing the point? Maybe I got the point a little bit more towards the end. But like, simple. That's kind of where I'm at. Let me give you the rundown of the film just to kind of set the plate for everybody here. The movie is An Inn in Tokyo, release date November 21st, 1935. The tagline is an unemployed Kihachi and his two sons struggle to make ends meet, but that doesn't keep Kihachi from wooing single mother Otaka. Directed by Yasuhiro Ozu. Distributed by I'm going to say Shochiku Studios. Runtime about 80 minutes. Will, I'm going to give you the starring cast. Bear with me. I'm sure I'm going to butcher every word and syllable. Takeshi Sakamoto as Kihachi. Takan Kozo as Zenko, which is just one of the boys. Takayuki Sumatsu as Masako, Yoshiko Okada as Otaka, Kuzuko Ojimo as Kimiko, and Choko Alita or Alida, maybe it's silent, I'm not sure, as Suni. So there's not a big cast here, which is fine. I think it worked for the movie. Letterboxd rating of a 3.8. I did not look up I forgot to look up the Rotten Tomatoes. That's something I can get you on the back end. But, Will, where are you at when I say simple? And I know there's some heavy themes here. So I'm not trying to downplay anybody's time in history as anything, because this is mirroring. Sure. Just because there's a Great Depression in America doesn't mean that it didn't impact the world, right? The global stage. But it did feel a little simple, yes?
Yeah, I think so. I think, oh man, it's hard because I feel like there's a lot going on in the first half around Kahachi and his boys kind of vagabonding their way around Tokyo trying to find work. And you can see in Kahachi's face, the actor Takeshi Sakamoto, his facial expressions are really, especially when he's looking at his boys, when they're talking back and forth to each other and playing around a little bit, you can kind of see the pain on his face because he's just not being accepted anywhere. He's not able to find work. He's not able to provide for them. So I think there's some complicated stuff going on around that, feeling left out of the system, right? And you see how he's not able to kind of find his way in. But what's weird about this movie is that it feels like it wants to say a lot about Hachi, but it never really takes the leap, because we get the little things along the way about like him being an alcoholic and him, dreaming of sake, and it wants to get us there, but never quite does. So it ends up feeling a little bit too underdeveloped, right? Or
underdeveloped, and I can't even say top surface, because there's just like these little moments of these things, and then like they just abandon it so quickly. I'm with you. I think Act 1 and part of Act 2, it really does set a pretty good stage for what we think this movie is going to be. Right. I really enjoyed, like, if we were just to kind of break down the plot a little bit, you've got an opening shot of this family, this father and two sons. They're on this industrial drive and they're just walking, and like you said, everything's desolate, but there's obviously some things happening in the background. We see a shot of school children, I think, maybe walking in a line, and the kids seeing that. And so this is something that maybe I don't understand about Japanese culture, and maybe you can help me. Is it a privilege? Is it you have to pay as you go? Like, why are his boys not in school during this time while he's out looking for work? Because I got to admit, especially in Act 3, there's some confusing things that I just kind of, maybe I'm having a harder time digesting, and we'll talk it out and maybe it will make more sense. But like, make sense to me of why those boys aren't in school.
Well, I just think it's a homeless situation. I don't think they have a home. I don't think they have a school, because they're kind of wandering around looking. So like
no work. District, right? Is that what you're saying? They don't have a, okay.
Yeah, and I do think that things are, in Japan right now, they're complicated in the 1930s because Japan's kind of gearing up, and I think they're already in the midst of fighting China for land, and things are just kind of, I'm not an expert in this area, but I would imagine that things aren't as organized, on the day-to-day for the civilians of Japan as, the military is. So I think there's probably some, people slipping through the cracks, so to speak, and these two boys are just one of those groups that is slipping through.
No, fair enough, and that probably does make sense. I'm sure they have something like that where you got to have a home address to get a district in order to, you know what I mean? The only thing that kept kind of making making me wonder, and this is maybe where we play our segment that we played with Dave in 1934. When I asked the question, will make the title of the movie make sense? So essentially, we get an inn in Tokyo, which I'm assuming is this inn that they kind of stayed at in the first part, because there's only so far that they can venture out every day and then venture back on foot, right? So like that part, because of that, I was trying to figure out why they couldn't use that as an address maybe and then stay there, but it's because it's not their permanent address. So I'll get off that, but make the title make sense to the movie.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it just kind of centers around. I can't remember the name of the inn. I probably should have just wrote it down. But
It's like, but Kay's the inn or the something like that.
Yeah, they came back to it probably 5 or 6 times.
Yeah.
And that's where we end up finding out that what was her name? Kimiko is sick.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, it's kind of centered around this inn, but in order for it to like really make sense, you would think that like you hear the title of this and you think like you're going to be following some workers that are working in this inn, and it's like centered around the inn, but it's more of a happenstance more than anything.
It's funny you say that. The way I thought it was going to be is I was like, okay, I kind of took it as in the midst of everything, they have shelter every night. You know what I mean? That's kind of what I thought it was going until until we get to the part in the movie where they're like, do you want to eat or do you want shelter? Okay. And that kind of takes us into the second act, or maybe more like the second act. So up until that point, I was like, okay, this title of this movie is about, as all these things are going down, maybe Japanese culture at least offers this place of shelter every night. And that's what the title of this movie is going to be. I think they kind of abandoned that afterwards because there are some things that the timeline, 10 days, he's, you know what I mean? There's some things, right? It's all realistic. It's all believable, but it's also too, it jumps, and we just kind of got to follow along and put it together as we go. Let's talk about the plot a little bit. So Act 1 going into Act 2, they decide that they're going to eat that day instead of go to the inn. So I'm assuming that the inn costs a little bit of sen. Is that correct?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Am I saying that correctly? Is that how you pronounce their currency?
Sen. Yeah, that sounds right to me.
Okay. So it's got to cost a certain amount of sen. And up to this point, they've been kind of making it work with chasing down stray dogs and, making sure that they have their rabies shots, so that they're not out there being toxic to all the things that come around them. But so they do that, and they make a little bit of money and enough time to stay at this place more times than not. But, they keep falling on hard times. Dad can't get a job. They didn't find a dog that day. So they decide that they're hungry. They're going to go get food. And this is the moment that the lady working there says 30 sen for the 3 meals that they're eating, right? And he doesn't have enough from what the boy says, not enough. But then next scene we see, they're just kind of casually walking out of that restaurant. So are we just led to believe at that point in time before he meets Suni and finds out that that's where she's staying, that they just kind of like gave those guys a break and just like let them walk out the door? Like what are we supposed to believe at that point in time?
I thought they had enough to eat, but the problem was they didn't have enough to go to the inn, and that's why the rain was so important. Because it starts raining while they're eating, and it seemed to me like they had paid, like they had planned to do, but the whole point of that scene, like when he was kind of looking through his coins, was he was debating what to do because they were planning on sleeping in the field. So I think there was supposed to be the kind of, hanging over the shoulders, the monkey on the back of whether or not he was just going to try to take the kids and leave without paying, but they end up paying.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I'll give you that. There was the one line by the oldest son that said, I think it said not enough. And I took that as, because I thought they had already made the decision that they were going to eat and that they didn't have enough for both. And that's why they were going to sleep outside. So what you were saying is that he was maybe going to like dine and dash and then take the money and take him to an inn, but like they didn't do that
Yeah,
because he's a man of principle. So,
yeah,
okay, okay, let's take that as face value, and then so we get to a place here where we do meet this Sunni character. Um,
yeah.
it this is first of all the Sunni character and the other lady. It's just hard in a black and white film, hard in a Japanese culture where they wear similar style clothing.
Mhm.
At times you do get confused with who's who. I think I ultimately got it worked out and I knew who was who, but like, is it fair to say that the Sunni character, she brings them in and gives them shelter and gives him a job, and she's doing it because she ultimately likes Kihachi? Or is it just, do you think it's not that deep?
No, I think
Because
it's that deep.
okay, I do
There's
too.
Yeah, so there's the scene where a little bit later she says something about old habits, right? She
Yes.
said, "Are you into your old habits?" And when she says that, I think we're supposed to kind of infer that from earlier too, that with all the sake, like pretending to be drinking sake, like some of those old habits are the bad habits of, you
Yeah.
know, potentially being an alcoholic. One of my complaints about the movie, of course, is that we don't actually get enough of this thread
Yeah.
to really kind of understand some of the decision making that's happening in the second half. But I think that's what we're supposed to take from the scene is that Sune and Kahachi kind of have some sort of long history. I mean, she asks about his wife
Right.
and where she is, and he says she's gone. And that's the other thing is like, are we gone? How
Yeah.
like dead or like she pieced out? Like what are
Yeah.
we talking about here? So there's just some confusion. I think I don't know if gone is maybe just a word of translation that we're having issues with here. But yeah, I think we're supposed to take it as these two have some sort of history and not like passerby, more like a deeper
Yeah,
coding.
because the only reason I'm just trying to clear this stuff up so that when we dive in and talk about it a little bit more,
Yeah,
we're at the same table here. Uh,
right.
so because I'm with you, the things that get me a little confused is, as she alludes to, those old habits. Is she referring to, like, are we supposed to believe that he in 10 days is a man that has just like built these habits and she's like seen it over a span of 10 days? Or is this because when they first see each other, she's so happy to see him, he's so happy to see her, and she mentions that they haven't seen each other in years, right? So this is either, old habits from a time prior, which again, these aren't that crucial to the storyline. We can just buy it and believe it and move on. Um, but it's just, I'm just trying to wrap my head around because we go from these scenes kind of even though like the scene itself is kind of slow,
Yeah,
the story moves kind of quickly, right? So we get to a
yep,
place where they're sharing drinks and he's got the scarf or the
mm,
headpiece, right? That he
yep,
ultimately wants to give to the daughter, the little girl's mother, right? Because he's got a crush on her. He's wooing
yeah,
this woman, right? So he's been
right,
sewing this and trying to make this for her. But then she disappears, and that frustrates him, angers him. He makes him, he's drinking heavily that day, and he ends up throwing it to Sune, who seems more than pleased to have this, right? So he am I wrong? Did you kind of
I
interpret that different that?
yes, because I don't think that's Sune. I think so. I think he's in an entire different brothel. I think he's in a whorehouse in that scene, and that's a different character completely.
Okay.
That he's coming on to. I think, and I agree with you. The problem here is they they look a lot alike, Sune and this other character, but I'm almost certain that it's a different character in that brothel house. And one of the frustrating parts of this film
Uh
is Otaka works at this brothel and he doesn't realize it.
I I I don't know, Will. I don't know.
No?
Maybe. I because he says, what is a man not allowed to change his mind? And the only thing I can take from that as a reference to a previous conversation in which they had, about, do you think she'll like it? Do you know, like about the scarf? It's the only reason I think that, because she takes it and he says basically go get some more sake, sends her off. And then he sees, what's the lady's name? Otaka. Then he sees Otaka at this brothel, and that's what upsets him, and I'm just assuming during that time, Suni is like off working on getting his sake. But we could be wrong. I could be wrong. I just took it as that. Again, not crucial, but I guess my point is this, is that if it's, let's go down my path real quick. If it is Suni, okay, she's happy that he's given her this scarf. She's off gonna go get more sake. The next time we see Suni is when he's asking her for 30 sen, and she tells him no. And now she's like upset in old habits. It just felt like the attitude towards each other, it just didn't feel like it was matching up the way that it should. Like the motives, like we just didn't get enough to get to those types of, like, I feel like we're missing a scene or two. Or if we go down your road and it's not Suni at all, and it's a different person that kind of sort of looks like Suni, then that means the last time we saw Suni, they were talking about this scarf and drinking sake, and she was happy. So I guess I got a different vibe altogether from Suni in that scene where he's asking for 30 sen, and she's like annoyed by him. It felt like she was annoyed by him before he even opened his mouth.
Huh. Well, see you in 80 minutes. I got to go watch this thing again.
No, you do not. No, you do not. No, don't do that to yourself. Well, see, okay.
Well, I'm just trying to think this through, because I do think these scenes are crucial, because when we get to the end of the movie, what is that last title pane essentially says, like, his soul has been saved. Like, and that's a pretty big statement, right? And if we're not taking stuff from the rest of the film, then why are we getting that statement, right? So it almost feels like, I don't know, and this is probably the ultimate problem with the film, is that the movie doesn't pay off that final title card. It doesn't even really pay off his decision to kind of, save the day for Otaka, right? Because what do we know about him? Why does he feel like his soul needs to be saved? We don't know. And
we don't even know what he really do we even really have an idea of what he stole money is what we're assuming, right? Mm-hmm. But we don't get a scene that shows him doing that.
Right.
So if it wasn't for the scene where he wakes up his children and asks them to go to the hospital, and he gives them the money, hell, I thought he was going to rob Suni for a second there. You know what I mean? Like, trying to figure out what was going to happen at the end here. And then, so let's put a pause on the plot. Okay, let's jump into our normal flow of things. We'll come back to it. I just wanted to kind of set the table because I felt like it was important, and anybody listening to this episode might have these questions too. I do think, though, Will, I do think it was Suni he was talking to, just referencing, a man's allowed to change his mind. If not, that line don't make any sense to me unless he's just in a drunken stupor. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Nope. No. You're right.
All right, let's move on. What'd you give this movie? What was your rating?
I think I'm ending up at a 3.5. I wanted to give it a 4 because I really liked that first half of the film, but I felt like it was too disjointed in the second part for me to go any higher.
Yeah, I think it's too disjointed. I gave it a 3.5 as well, because I got to be honest with you, I'm not really sure that the last line in his soul has been saved really has anything to do with the narrative we've been given up to that point. You know what I mean? Like, if you put all of the movie together, I never once thought that this man was morally in a gray area, because there wasn't enough times that he was flirted with temptation of anything. You know what I mean? He kind of always made the right decision for the most part. So I give it a 3.5 as well. And I think it's nice that we're back on the same page for something, Will. It's been a while, and I'm glad we're there, buddy. So modern day recast. Now this is tough. This is tough because
Hmm.
this is through the lens of a Japanese story. But this story is not just, exclusive to the Japanese culture. You could take
Sure.
this and do anything with it. So if you didn't find or come up with names, I really wanted to. Let me ask this: did you come up with some names?
I've got a couple names here. Yeah.
Okay, give me some names. Give me what you got, because I went a
Okay.
different route with it.
Yeah. So I went with Matt Smith for Katachi. Do you know who
Okay,
Matt Smith is? Yep.
I'm gonna Google him. I might.
Yeah, he's been in the most recent couple seasons of House of the Dragon. He plays like the
Yep.
main what you call him. It doesn't matter. I just he's got a real like presence about him. Kind of he's got the two. He's got a devil. And he's got an angel, and he can flip back and forth between the two. And I think that would serve this role really well for Katachi. And then I thought Elizabeth Olsen as Otaka would be
Oh,
an
okay.
interesting kind of role for her because she's got some of that innocence. If you've seen Marcy May, whatever the four M's are, movie, she's got that kind of innocent quality about her where she could, if she was in trouble, someone would want to save her. So
Martha, Marcy, May, Marlene.
there you go.
And he plays one of the Targaryens in House of
Mhm.
Dragon. Um, so what I wanted to do here was is ask this question about children actors. Okay,
Mm.
and I just, without thinking about it, if I was to say to you, Will, name me what you think is the most popular child actor right now that you
Mm.
might actually know their name, would you know this? And the question then kind of goes to a different place. Did we ever know child actors? Like, did we know of a Drew Barrymore? Did we know of of a Leonardo DiCaprio? He wasn't really a child actor. Of a Haley Joel Osment might be, I think, the most famous child actor.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Maybe ever. It,
Yep.
can you come up with
Yeah.
some names? I don't know if you know any today, but just like when I say to you, famous child actors, who comes to your mind?
Well, I think Leo is a good one. He was an older child actor, but he was, I mean, what's eating Gilbert Grape? I mean, he couldn't have been more than 12 or 13, right?
Oh,
The
I
one
think he
that
was
kind
older than
of
that.
came to mind immediately was, oh, okay. Well, Jacob Tremblay is the other one that kind of comes to mind. He was in Room with Brie Larson and kind of hit a streak there where he was in all sorts of movies. The other one, Haley Joel Osment, I think is the best example. Probably the most famous child actor we've ever had because he was so good in like 4 or 5 movies when he was 10.
Yeah.
You couldn't really beat his run he had there in the late 90s.
What was the one that put him on the map? Sixth Sense, right? So then you got the Sixth Sense.
Sixth Sense. Yeah.
Yeah, Sixth
He also
Sense.
had
Then
Pay
he
It Forward.
Pay It Forward, Secondhand Lions. He was in a
Yep.
bunch. Oh, artificial. What was it? He was in a Spielberg movie too. Was it Artificial
Yeah.
Intelligence?
AI. Yep.
AI.
Yep.
Yeah. Will, how old do you think Leonardo was during Gilbert Grape?
I said 13. That's my guess.
19 years old.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, 19 years old. So he really transformed himself there. Um,
I
I,
guess
I
so.
just thought it would be fun to talk about child actors just for the fact that, like, a lot of times with Drew Barrymore, you don't know Drew Barrymore is Drew Barrymore at the time because it's not like a lot of movies were around her or she was that big of a star. And she had a longevity to her career, and we kind of in hindsight talk about her. But like at the time, Haley Joel Osment, Macaulay Culkin, those types of kids were like big names. And it's just interesting that Haley Joel Osment is still around, and he's kind of got his niche now. But like Macaulay Culkin is kind of altogether kind of quit acting, which
Yeah.
just tells you how tough it is to go from a
Sure.
child to this. Maybe Shia LaBeouf is a good one. I don't know. He was more of a TV show series before I don't know. Holes, I guess he was probably still a teenager
Yeah.
during that time. So, um,
Yep.
anyways, I just thought that'd be fun to talk about child
Right.
actors. All right, let's talk about this director, Will. Yasujiro Ozu. During the making of An Inn in Tokyo, Yasujiro Ozu was still early in his career, but already developing what he called the quiet, understated style he would later become famous for. One interesting detail is that this was Ozu's last fully silent film. Even though sound had already become the industry standard in Japan, Ozu resisted sound partly because he felt it disrupted the visual rhythm he wanted, and partly because Shochiku Studios wasn't in a rush to force him into talkies, trusting his artistic instincts. I wanted to stop right there before I continued on with him. That seems different compared to the Hollywood studio system. Yes? No?
Yeah.
Giving a director just
I'm with you.
Just giving a director just like full freedom to make artistic liberties with his movies, just because they agree that it would hinder what he was going for. I don't know that we get that same type of support in the Hollywood studio system. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, it's very, very few and far. I don't know if we have any instances at all yet, because even like Hitchcock, we haven't gotten to his American run yet. We're still kind of working through his English stuff. So, yeah, I mean, at this time, it's kind of unheard of.
Yeah. I just thought that was an interesting anecdote. Let's do this. Are you having some difficulties? Because I got you on a big delay right now.
Yeah, I'm having some, I don't know what.
Okay, I'm gonna pause
okay.
this. You want to hop off and then try to hop back on?
Yeah, let me see if Molly came down and was watching YouTube on her phone and it took over my pod.
Gotta love, there's only so much bandwidth in this world for everybody.
Right.
All right, let's pick back up.
All right.
Okay, just so one last thing I just kind of wanted to say on him is there was also kind of a personal layer to this story, because Ozu was deeply affected by the social realities of the time as well, including rising unemployment and hardship, which is why An Inn in Tokyo is one of his most socially conscious works. The on-location shooting in the dusty, kind of wind-swept outskirts of Tokyo gave the film its authentic, almost documentary-like feel. I felt that way early on.
For sure.
Act 1 is a more interesting story to me than what Act 2, 3 becomes. Is that fair? Even though Act 1's so much more simpler, a story that we've seen and heard 1,000 times because of the Great Depression and things of that nature. Anytime a man, woman, a person overcomes hard times, it doesn't matter how many times you've seen it, you're going to get an emotional reaction.
Yeah.
When we get to the plot, what I want you to kind of think about right now, I'm going to ask you now, is what kind of movie does this become after it abandons that? And I'm not sure it abandons it completely. I want you to think about it, and I'll ask you again. Okay?
Okay.
All right. Let's get to some anecdotes if we can. Filming in the real dust of poverty, Ozu refused to rely entirely on the studio sets and instead took his cast and crew to desolate outskirts of Tokyo. These industrial wastelands full of dusty roads and idled factories weren't just backgrounds, they were the very spaces where unemployed workers wandered during the Depression. Locals would often watch filming, recognizing in the scenes a mirror of their own struggles. We talk a lot about systems, and I think the thing that makes our show a little bit different than any other film review show is that we try to tie in real historical history, real human aspects, ask these types of questions. And it's this type of struggle isn't just unique to one country, right? It's this idea of, okay, we have currency, that's a system. If we're going to build a system where I have to have sen, then you have to provide enough opportunity for me to obtain sen. And if there's not, then your system is failing. Whether that's because of some stock sharing or whatever these things are, you have failed your citizens of your country. And that is unfortunately where, this father and his two kids find themselves. Just throwing that kind of thought exercise out there. When I say that, Will, what comes to your
Yep.
mind with this far too reality of people or systems failing people?
Well, yeah. I mean, when you build a system based around a ladder and having to climb up it, you're going to have to kick people down the ladder. Like it's just inherent to the system is that people have to fail in order for others to succeed. There is a you know we both love sports, right? Because there's good competition there. It can make us better. At the end of the day, there's a winner and a loser, but the stakes are pretty low, right? It's about making yourself better through a sport. The problem with systems that we saw kind of failing in the 30s and the stuff that we're seeing nowadays is everything is a sport where the winners win and they win huge, and others, the losers, they end up with nothing. When you build a system around that, it becomes problematic at the very least. And what we see in this film and what we see in other films where, something like the Florida Project comes to mind, where you have people, we're seeing the worst parts of society kind of dredged up. It's, it, I mean, unfortunate is the word that comes to mind, but it feels insufficient.
Insufficient. I like that. I like that. Let's move on. The children were unpolished on purpose. The two child actors, Tomio Aoki and Masaya, well, I've got the names, I think, switched here, but the two child actors were not heavily rehearsed. Ozu preferred them to speak naturally and even improvise slight changes to their lines, creating a more authentic sibling relationship. Some takes weren't kept even when they stumbled over words because Ozu liked the realism. I think this is ChatGPT messing with me a little bit. I'm not 100% sure what they're talking about here, but as far as the idea of them being unpolished on purpose and him
Yeah.
using kind of like maybe up and comer actors and things of that nature, I do think it
Yeah.
lends to the credibility of the movie early on feeling like a documentary. Um,
Yeah.
and I gotta say, I thought the kids did great, but
Mhm.
uh, the it felt like the MVP of this movie early on was the oldest child, right? The
Yeah.
oldest boy, because he's got the most compelling kind of things going for him. He's the optimism in the room, he's the force pushing his dad forward, but
Yeah.
he also sees the kind of the military hat cap as a whether it's a status or
Mm.
hope or just fun cap for like almost like a toy for a
Yeah.
child to have. He ends up spending one of their stray dog captures money on that hat, and knowing that would cost him that day's food. So I thought the oldest child actor, really did a really good job.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. It's another kind of flaw of the film here is like, and maybe this is also partly like cultural differences, because classically Japanese culture is very reserved.
Right.
They emotion is a weakness, and like you just do the right thing. Your duty is your honor, right? So maybe there's a little bit of cultural misunderstanding coming from me here, but it felt like there were some opportunities here where the sons are still like, even though they're vagabonds, right, kind of wandering around aimlessly looking for work, they still have, you can see in their faces that they have a reverence for their father,
Yep.
and they don't play on this enough, because they like, the father looks back at them and you can see like he has almost like remorse for having put his kids in this place, and they just, it, so much goes unsaid in these moments that it would be fine if it felt like it paid off later. But just kind of bring it back, like, yes, the child actors here I thought did a great job, and it felt very authentic because it felt like they're the sons, right?
Yeah, you felt like they were genuinely struggling for food. Like, I love the dynamic of, "Aren't you hungry? Aren't you hungry? No, know, and them just trying to continue to be like the will for their father to continue on.
Yeah.
There's some great things in this first act. So let's dive into the plot, and then I want to kind of get to where things go sideways and what kind of movie this becomes. So
Yeah.
I thought just some of the things in Act One that I really enjoyed. I love we get the setup of him going to ask the gate man for a job. Gate man says no. We get the son saying, "I would have punched him," or "You should punch him," or "Beat him up, Dad," or "Knock him out," or whatever he ends up saying.
Yeah.
Which is just, it's such a childlike response to an adult problem, right?
Yep.
In the father, it kind of has it's funny because they have the maturity to say no when their dad asks them if they're hungry. Like, they understand that there's a level of disappointing their father if they were to say yes, that they don't want to bring to the table right now. But yet he says, "Dad, we should fight him." I almost wonder if he's doing that just as like to like keep his dad's spirits high. And he's just kind of playing like he would do that, or if that's really how he felt. But either way, I think whatever way you take it, it would work. What do you think?
Yeah, I think you kind of said it perfectly. I think the kids, I mean, it's the childhood, the playground. Well, my dad can beat up your dad. Like,
Yeah,
there's some of that going on where it's just like, hey, Dad, you're awesome. Why didn't you just beat him up? Like, there's
yeah,
definitely some of that going on too. So I think you said it perfectly when you said like a child reaction to an adult problem, and they just think that their dad can handle it when most likely that's not the right route.
yeah. It's probably not. Probably not going to land him a job. But they set this up, and then they run it back the next day because they've already gotten a stray dog. That's how they end up at the inn again. The next day, they run it back. They do basically the exact same thing for the most part.
Yeah.
It's just the second day. The thing that's a little bit different is we get introduced to the Okada. Is it Okada?
Otaka.
Otaka and her daughter. Just from afar, we just kind of get an interaction where they're in the room. What I love is that the simplest ways that boys, without being obnoxious, or not just boys, but children, can still be children through the facial expressions. They're constantly sticking their tongue out at each other. They're sticking their tongue out at Otaka's daughter. They're playing. They're finding a way to be youthful in a situation that doesn't have room for them to be youthful.
Right.
So much so that you could kind of see that the dad in that second day fighting for space to get away from his kids, as they're all kind of there, and he says, "Dad, I would have hit him." He just walks away from him. You know what I mean? And it's just because he just needs a second. And then the kids doing what they do, follow their dad. So there's a lot of really good things done here. Now, we also get, to kind of wrap up Act One, we get this kind of like this bag they've been carrying. And they get tired of carrying it. They're fighting. "Oh, Dad told you to carry it and you gave it to me. I'm leaving it. I'm leaving it." And then ultimately it's gone when they decide to go back and get it. What's the symbolism there? Is that home? Is that all they have that they would call like their territorial over? And they just kind of lost sight of it for a second? Like, what's the symbolism of that bag, you think?
Well, I think that's a good point. I hadn't thought of that. I was kind of taking this scene more like it's siblings and children just not realizing the stakes of things.
Okay.
Like, you kind of, when you have kids, someday you will see that the kids just can't help but fight, man. They literally just can't help it. Like, over the dumbest things, right? Like, one of the kids will think, "I can't let you have that right now," just because it's just in their nature, and that's what ends up happening. So I really think this is just kind of a little bit more. It doesn't matter the circumstances; these kids are just being kids, and not realizing the stakes. So
Fair enough. Fair enough. Way to take a light jab in the middle of that point. But, um, it's funny to kind of echo what you were saying. I can remember as a child, I'm 3.5 years older than my younger brother. And
Mm.
I didn't mind that he wanted cereal, but he never wanted cereal until I wanted cereal. And then when I went and got a bowl, he had to have a bowl, and it's like, why? Why are you doing this to me, bro? Like you want your own cereal, you should get it on your own time, not when I want it. That used to just piss me off. I don't know why.
Yeah.
But you're right. It's just stupid things like that we do to just drive your parents crazy. But
Yeah.
so just putting a bow on Act One, I just really thought that the movie was going to be about a gentleman overcoming those struggles. You know, of course, anybody that is en route to overcoming his obstacles or her obstacles needs to catch a break somewhere. And that's where the Suni character comes in. She is the opportunity to kind of break the cycle that they have found themselves in. And I think this movie weirdly turns into, it's not fully, I know it's not a love triangle story. I know we don't get there, right?
Yeah.
I admit that. But like, it just feels like you can dabble in it, but as long as you don't miss kind of like your main narrative that you're going for. And I do feel like we just get wonky the rest of the way. So what I want to ask you, and it's something I've asked you to think about, is what does this movie become to you?
Um, I really don't. I really think that it wants to still be a social commentary,
Okay.
but it gets lost, right, by not fully exploring some of the themes. So I don't know if I got love triangle so much as like um, I think it's a good point that there is a potential love triangle going on here. But I think the bigger issue isn't that it kind of strays away from the social commentary so much that it tries to walk in the social commentary without actually explaining itself.
Okay.
So the disconnect for me is that it tries to stay as a social commentary about people like Kihachi without ever really getting us to a point where we can understand a person like Kihachi.
Okay. Okay. Um, yeah, I mean, because it just doesn't show us enough. Like we don't
Yeah.
know 100%. I'm on board with that. And like I said, the moment I heard it coming out of my mouth, I was like, oh, I'm gonna lose all credibility when it comes to anybody that's seen this movie and think of this as a film review. I, I agree. Like, there's just not enough there for it to necessarily. I guess my issue is I have no issue with Suni having maybe some sort of expectations that when she brings him in. And I also, because it's Japan and they're more reserved, so to speak, at least from what we think, I also have no problem with like that never directly being spoken. And I also, but what I wish was understood a little bit more is that maybe there's this understanding from Suni's character that she likes him, but like that's as far as it is, and she doesn't like. I don't know. I don't know. I guess I think I just got too much of that feeling that this was what the story was. It didn't abandon the social commentary because there's still a lot of things that show up. We get the conversation at the brothel between him and Otaka, about which is such a guy move, right? Like I'm sitting in a brothel, you're in a brothel working, and you're the bad person, right? Let's explore that conversation for a second.
I don't think we need to. I think we all know that's some shitty behavior.
So that takes place. You know, I guess to me,
Yeah.
go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, so there's still a couple things that I think really pay off here. And it kind of comes up in the second act here. One of the things that Kahachi says is as he's kind of deciding to steal the money and work towards helping Otaka and her daughter, he mentions, I can't remember exactly what he said, but he mentions like I see them and I feel like I feel responsible because I was there too,
Yeah.
right? I was there too. And then he says something along the lines of like, I thought about ending it for me and my sons,
Yeah.
right?
It's
So,
the one quote I wrote down because it was powerful.
yeah,
Once I even considered killing myself and the kids. Um,
yeah,
because that hit me. That hit me. I was like,
yeah,
and she doesn't have children, the
right,
Sunni character, and he's trying to, kind of explain his case of like, if you had children, you would understand where I'm coming from.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so
And
I wish I was a
it
little bit
makes,
more eloquent in
yeah,
what I'm trying to get across, but like I, I just feel like Act Two, maybe Act Two is just the simple problem because of what they're trying to go for in Act Three. There is that social commentary, and there is the and a soul was saved, and all these things being said. It's just Act
yeah.
Two really does not a great job of getting us there.
Yeah. And the other problem too is there's some weird time stuff going on, right? 10 days later we find out, but up front it feels like it's been multiple months, right?
Yeah,
It feels like it's been months of this because the kids are talking about school. They're in a routine, which often takes more than a couple weeks to really get into. It just felt like they were living in this situation for a while. And then you find out it's been 10 days, and that feels a little
too quick.
yeah, too quick. So there's definitely a bunch of issues going on in the second act.
Yeah, the timing is definitely a problem. The expedient nature of the Otaka's daughter playing one day, and then she gets sick, and then they're gone. And
Yep.
then she just shows up at the brothel, and she's been, using her body to make money. Um,
Hmm.
she had dysentery, which I looked up is like an infectious diarrhea from contaminated food and water. Um,
Yeah.
so it goes back to at some point you're going to have to eat something because you're going to try to stay alive, and the what she had at her disposal was contaminated food and water. So that
Yeah.
fits in well with the theme of the overall theme there. I guess where I just want to end up going is to put a bow on this movie because
Yeah.
we're going to ask this question here soon about should this movie have been drafted.
Yeah.
And I so badly want to say yes, but I just think it falls short, and I think maybe we could have done better. And
Oh. Yeah.
and I ultimately that's where I'm at with this. And it kind of sucks because I'm the one that fought for this movie, and I didn't fight too hard. You were interested in it, but I really
Yeah.
wanted to give this a shot. I thought it was going to kind of give us, and I think it did. It still gave us an image of the
Yeah.
struggles of what was happening across the world in Japan.
Yeah.
But as a film overall, I just wonder if we could have found something better.
Maybe. But if we go a little further and say, is this a rewatchable or a scene study or a, you know, leave it alone? There's scenes here that are worth watching, and like we're being a little hard on it because, and I think we do this most with the films that we feel like had the legs to get there but just
Yeah,
didn't.
yeah,
And there's some other stuff too that comes up like around Katachi and like what happened with his wife, because we get this at the back end. It's like there's something clearly that he did that was a terrible thing, whether it was lost his job and destroyed his family, or maybe he like somehow got his wife killed or sick or something. But there's something there that I feel like pays off if we just if it's expounded upon a little bit. So there's still stuff in the film that there's the pieces there. So as far as like should it have been drafted, I don't think that's too
you don't
hard
have
of a
an
question.
issue. Okay, all right,
Yeah,
all right. I'm alone in my horse there. That's fine. But so as far as the what you were just getting at, you're right because there's something that's happened, and it's almost feels like if you put together the old habits comment,
mhm,
the fact that his wife is gone. Now, let's just explore that. Did she say, "Okay, life is too hard right now, and I'm going to bolt"? That doesn't feel like a Japanese culture thing. Um,
mhm.
where would she go? Is she from a, why would, well, where would a mother leave and not take her children. So it feels
Right.
like her children. So it feels like gone means dead, right?
Yeah.
That's what it feels like. Um, so what happened to make her die? And if he had any part in that because of this final and a soul was saved, because if that message is just simply on the fact that he stole 30 zen or sen, um, is that statement at the end holds a lot of weight for
Yeah.
30 sen is 30. Maybe I just don't understand how much 30 sen is that fair? Because I feel like that's supposed to be this powerful statement at the end, and I'm just not sure that we had a great enough crime on
Yeah.
somebody that we've only seen make pretty good choices up until that. He drinks heavily, but he's
Yeah.
always there as a father. He looked for work. He goes to work every day. um, I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
you tell me.
No, there's got to be something bigger that's either missing from the film, like categorically, because there's a scene missing or something. I know the title kind of essentially said like this has been restored, and
Okay.
like there's extant is the word they use, just mean like existing. So I don't know how much was saved. So I do think that we're supposed to interpret this as the mother died because of some sort of, you know, something happened where the father was kind of maybe not fully at fault, but was responsible in certain ways for the death. And the ending is him redeeming himself by saving the daughter and Otaka. I think that's what we're supposed to interpret. But again, this is where we keep kind of button up against like we're just missing something that doesn't let us get all the way there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You're right. I do think we're the hardest on films that we know we like. Like they've got all these things that we like and we've rooted for, and when we've seen them, like other examples of those stories execute well,
Yep.
they're some of our favorite movies, right? And you're just rooting for this to get there, and then you see something happen, and you're like, oh, don't do that, or I need you to. Okay, maybe they're going to come back to that, and they don't, and you're just like, oh, what a disappointment. So it
Yeah.
it does make you kind of harp on that and not celebrate what they did get right. So that's why I kind of wanted to just come into this one and say, Will, I think I'm just gonna break it down with you, buddy, and not sure I'm gonna give a score.
Yeah.
Because but I that would be copping out, and I think we have to do what we got to do. So,
Right.
anything else from this film? Maybe themes that weren't talked about, maybe we didn't get to that we need to explore.
Um, I feel like there's probably a couple things that we're missing here and there just because of 1930s Japan and not being experts on that kind of stuff. Um, but other than that, there's clearly some there's some critiques going on about industrialization in that time period by kind of having it being so foreboding, like in the background, just kind of hanging over them everywhere they go. Um, but other than that, I think that's we pretty much touched on everything else.
Yeah, that's such a real thing when they're almost characters in the movie, right? Like these buildings. And it feels like it's close enough for you to be able to touch it. It's like, oh my
Yep.
gosh, it's right there and I'm willing. Why can't I achieve or attain this thing that I want?
Hmm.
And you just can't. There's concrete and there's brick and there's building that's literally between you and the opportunity. And then on top of it, there's gatekeepers, literally gatekeepers, that's telling you no. So, um,
Right.
there's some really good things there,
Yeah.
and I'm back. I'm back on the positive side here with you. So, um, what do you believe? Let's list some of the themes that we. So obviously, there's this direct line at the end of this movie where they talk about like I can't remember what the line is, but it's basically, oh, poverty sucks, for lack of
Yeah.
better dialogue. But they do
Yep.
almost come close to that. Was that spoken from Suni's perspective, or was that from I can't remember? Is that her like realization of understanding, like after he delivers the "if you had kids, you'd understand" line, and she then
Mm,
says that? Was that did
I
that
think
come
that's
from
right.
her?
Yeah,
Okay,
I'm pretty sure.
so outside poverty, what are some of the other major themes here at play?
Um, industrialization, mentioned that. We've got poverty. We've got
There's some
Moana, yep,
identity stuff taken, not identity, but gender
roles.
what's the
Yeah,
roles? Thank you. Gender roles at
yeah.
play.
And then like duty is definitely heavy on the mind here when you thinking, especially of the big theme of like what Kahachi's responsible for in the end, because that's the other thing. Like he's risking his kids, right, by making this decision, not just like his relationship and being taken away from them, but what happens to his kids. Is Sune like really going to take care of them? Like,
Yeah.
there's a lot of risk that he's putting out here because he feels like he has a moral responsibility for Ataka and the child. So, duty's another really big one, I think.
Yeah. Um, did we need at the end of the movie? I guess the only way in order to get the line in "A Soul Was Saved," we needed to hear that he's looking for the nearest police station, right? Like that's the only
Yeah,
way. The only way to save that soul is for him to turn himself in for stealing the money.
probably. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Alrighty, my friend. Let's move on to some quick hitters, if we
All right.
can. Memorable quotes. I did. I wrote down the one. We've talked about it, but once I even considered killing myself and the kids. Um, Lines like this is if it was a if it was anything but a silent film and you hear that, like it would hit even harder than just reading it. But
Yeah.
what does it do when you read that? Does it still have an impactful feeling on you, or is it even more because you're reading it from like you're kind of filling in all the gaps?
Sure. Well, that and it also makes the early scenes really pay off the way he's looking at his kids,
Yeah.
because what you think before is just a little bit of like um, resentment towards the fact that he can't find work. It turns into something else completely when he's looking at his kids like that, because now you're wondering like, is he just resentful of all of them being alive still and the wife being dead? So I think it makes the rest of the first act kind of hit a little bit harder even with that line. So
Yep. I agree. Hard hitting questions. I did have one. um, and I couldn't even dress it up to make it funny. I just found it funny. So you tell me, as we've alluded to, I don't have kids. So you tell me, in the middle of the movie, there's this moment where, oh God, their names. Kahachi
yeah,
sees the Otaka. And
yes,
I think this is when they've kind of come back and he sees them again. And he's now doing better.
hmm,
He just bends down and picks up the little daughter, picks her up, and he's like gonna go take her to get food, and turns around, looks at her, and says, "Are you gonna come?" like, like first of all, you didn't ask, you just bent down, picked up this child, and was getting ready to walk
yeah,
away, and then you have the gall to ask this woman if she's coming. Like, I
yeah.
just thought that was funny.
Yeah, no, a little strange, but again, I think there's, they done that has have they been doing this for 10 days straight now? Like, there's a little bit of misunderstanding, I think,
Yeah, fair enough.
but
Fair enough.
yeah,
Did you have any hard hitting questions?
I didn't have anything. No,
I didn't have anything for doppelgangers. Did you?
nope.
I didn't want to flirt with getting canceled going down that road with this movie,
Oh,
so
jeez.
I'm just joking, just teasing. Um, is this? Should this movie have been drafted in hindsight? I'm gonna stake a claim, and I'm gonna say no. I'm gonna
Oh,
say
jeez.
no. I am gonna
Okay.
say no, but just because that's just how I feel. I think we could have maybe done better. I don't know. And the only reason I ask that is the question then becomes if we could have done better, not a sideways move, but like something maybe we missed that maybe in the history of cinema, maybe we should have seen. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that's my
Well,
thought, but you tell me.
well, I'm gonna say yes, but it's also because I think everything else we watched this year kind of covered that history, right? Like
Yeah.
Academy
Yeah.
Award winners, Academy Award nominations. So I feel like we kind of and like big box office hits. So we were looking for something a little quirky with this one and
Yeah.
different. And it sounds like we might run into Ozu again because he kind of goes on to make another dozen or so films. So maybe there's one in there where we can kind of look back on this one and say, hey, we watched that one too, and he's grown a lot. So
Yeah, it sounds like his big thing is social commentary, so he's in my wheelhouse of what I like. But uh,
yeah,
I do think we've hit some home runs this year. Bride of Frankenstein, The Informer, The 39 Steps, Top Hat, Mutiny on the Bounty, A Night at the Opera, and Captain Blood. This is a pretty strong year of films, I think.
yeah,
Don't you think overall?
yeah. No, I think this is a plateau year though. I think we
Okay,
hit a lot of really good films. I don't know if we got one of the great ones in
agreed.
this class. Yeah,
Agreed. I agree. I didn't feel like though we took a step back anywhere. You know what I mean? So because I like 31 as my great year, 34 was your great year, and I get
yep.
why you call this a plateau. To me, I'm looking for something that's going to beat that 31, and you just had your great year, so I get it. Let's continue on, my friend. Should this been or I'm sorry, is this a rewatch, a scene study? Forget it. We've already kind of talked about scene studies there. Fix
Yeah.
it in one move. I bet we have the same move, but you tell me.
Yeah, we just need to know more about Kahashi's background. If we just get a little bit more, even a scene or two, about what happened with the wife, I think it makes the ending pay off so much more.
Yeah, because if we get some type of context with the wife, then we kind of feel like we are projecting his previous mistakes in that relationship in onto Otaka and her daughter, and why he's trying to use those two as a redemption, not just for, oh, I've been there, and empathy because my kids were just there 10 days ago and we were struggling for food, but like
Right,
he's also, there's like that storyline, and then there's also this other area of like a second chance in life for his soul to be saved. So
right,
all right,
exactly.
what other movies did it remind you of? You know what it reminded me of is a lot of like kind of like these just anytime you have kind of an adventure movie or a vagabond, so to speak, whether it be oh god, the horror film, the silent horror film, not silent horror film, where they can't talk. uh
Oh, Bird Box? Is that what? No,
no, with
Julianne
Krasinski
Moore.
and Emily Blunt and two
Uh,
kids. Quiet
oh yeah,
Place.
Quiet Place.
Quiet Place.
Yep.
It reminds me of movies like that where like it's not necessarily the same themes, but these
Sure.
are the movies that were coming to my mind when I was sitting here watching this. I was like, oh, this is kind of what it feels like. You know, they're on the
Yeah.
road, they're kind of looking for things, shelters, so to speak. So,
Yeah. Yep. I've got three. One's kind of a joke. Armageddon. Bruce Willis, he kind of sacrifices himself to
yep.
save the day, right? So got a little bit of that. Another one was Isle of Dogs. Have you seen Isle of Dogs? It's Wes Anderson's kind of stop animation film he made
Oh
four or
no,
5 years
nope.
ago.
Okay,
That kind of has a similar time period, and the whole concept is the dogs gets cast off onto an island, right? Because of the diseases that were going on in Japan at the time,
okay,
kind of through the dog population. Just another one that kind of came to mind. And then similarly with themes, there's a movie that came out 2 years ago called Perfect Days, also Japanese. The main character in that does not have kids, but he is clearly kind of repenting for something. And you get a couple of scenes here or there where you start to realize that the reason why he's secluded himself is because he's feels like he deserves to be secluded.
okay.
And I thought that it had a lot of similar themes, like kind of that Japanese, like silent, duty bound mentality. So,
That duty bound mentality is so prevalent here, but like uh it has to do with that industrialization and how like the mindset of how it programs the worker, you know. And in
yep,
this movie specifically, the things that kind of stood out to me is like he's somebody who wouldn't steal because he doesn't believe that anybody's stealing from him, not his time, not money, not anything, right? Uh,
right,
and he's still being honorable and noble to this system that is failing him.
right,
And that in itself, whenever you have that type of commentary taking place, I don't think they delve into that theme, but like
yeah,
I do. I think about that stuff. It's like, is he entitled to a free meal here today or a free night stay? Is he, if he didn't come upon Suni, should there be a place for him to not have to sleep in the field that's pouring in? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yep.
So, because he is actively looking. So, anyways.
Yeah.
Okay, Will, one hot take. I already gave mine. I didn't think this movie should have been drafted. What do you have for us?
I wrote down Kahachi made the right choice because he was going to fuck it up anyway, because he was already halfway on a bender. So by cutting it off here, he kind of saved the day. So even if it doesn't really make sense, it kind of makes sense in the end.
I want to ask this question because I just came to me. Is this in line with Kahachi's character? As we get somebody up until he steals that money, for the most part, other than I'm just talking about what we've seen on camera. He is somebody who says it was foolish of his son to buy the hat so that they couldn't eat. He is being a good father. He's actively chasing down work. All these things, you know what I mean, that take place. You see the care that he has for Otaka and her daughter, and he seemingly has been on the right side of the morality. Is it in line with him to be an alcoholic and be at a brothel? And it could be. I'm just asking the question.
Well, I mean,
is that his escape from this hard time with his kids?
Yeah. Well, no, I don't escape. Vice is the word I have in my mind. I think that everyone has a vice. Some are worse than others, right? My vice is Reese's peanut butter cups after dinner. I need to stop doing that shit. But some other people's vices are drinking the night away. So I think that on the whole, he's a good person that just can't escape whatever alcohol draws him back in.
Yeah. So much so that he'd rather have it than food. And that great scene with the kids, they're all playing. Yep. I thought that was a great scene. So, all right, Will, we do not have anything on the docket for upcoming films. What we do have is awards and nominations. We'll do a quick little Oscars, which we need to do here now. Are we nominating anybody in this film for an award? I always just shoe in the main character. In this case, Kahachi will be up for the best male actor. Do we want to give supporting actor or actress to any of the rest? I want to give it to the oldest son.
Yeah. No, I'm cool with that.
Okay.
I also think Sune played a big enough role to be supporting actress, and I thought she was pretty good. I don't think Ataka had enough to do here to really nominate her, and that's really the only other character that would fall here. So,
okay. With that being said, we're almost a decade down, and we got 9 more to go, but we're going to get ready for 1936, and we kind of gave you the list of movies from 1935. If you guys haven't followed along yet or watched any of them, go ahead and watch them, and then catch our episode, and then tell us what you think. So, Will, next time we speak, buddy, it's going to be the 1936 draft and the Oscars for the 1935 years. So,
all right. Got a lot to do.
Well, guys, keep watching movies. We'll see you on down the road.
All right. We'll see you.